Greetings and salutations, dear viewers. Get ready for some fantastic content. Hello, YouTube friends. Join us as we unravel the mysteries surrounding Cataline. Jean-Jacques, known as Cataline, was the most famous mule packer of the Canadian West. Brace yourselves for the next chapter, where we'll be dissecting biography. Jean-Jacques, known as Cataline, was born in rural southern France around 1830, most likely in a town called Auvergne in the Béarn region. In 1858 the town joined up with Sainte-Marie, so the town then became Auvergne-Sainte-Marie. When he first came to what was later known as British Columbia, he packed on a small scale with only one animal. He eventually worked his way up to having larger pack trains with up to 60 animals, according to some, and it is said he had at least 4 pack trains. Brace yourself for an in-depth analysis as we navigate through the early years and its far-reaching implications. Cataline packed from Yale to Barkerville during the Cariboo Gold Rush, working mostly with experienced Mexican packers. He lived with an Lake-Spamux woman from Spasm called Amelia York, native name Chai. Jean had at least 2 children with her. The first was William Benjamin, the second was Rhoda Dominic Urquhart. It is also possible that another child, Clara Dominic Clare, who had many descendants, was also Jean-Jacques' child. Genealogical research is being done to ascertain if Jean-Jacques is actually their ancestor. In the Uz, his packing partner was Joe Castillo, another Frenchman who was mistaken as a Spaniard. Because of his name they called him Castilian. Joe eventually went his own way from Cataline's pack train and settled in Merritt, BC, Canada. He is commemorated in the Nicola Valley Museum in Merritt, with his son Henry Castillo, the cowboy judge of the Cariboo, and alongside the display of the famed anthropologist James Tite, a researcher of Aboriginal culture who worked for the Chicago Museum of Natural History. And Castillo did some packing trips for James Tite, which is where young Henry acquired his taste for the local culture. Perhaps people thought and Castillo were Spanish because they used Spanish words for packing, such as secundo and aparo. It is not hard to determine where these words originated when one remembers that these men grew up at the base of the Pyrenees Mountains, which is the border of Spain and France. However, as most packers in the early years in BC were Mexican, it is most likely that Spanish became the language of the profession for that reason. Although the exact date of his arrival in British Columbia is unknown, it is recorded that he was packing at the beginning of the Fraser Canyon Gold Rush in 1858 and continued until 1912, a span of 54 years. As we progress through this video, let's now turn our gaze towards a man with unique traits. Cataline was known to wear the same type of clothing year-round, a boiled white shirt, heavy woolen pants, riding boots and no socks. When he had business to conduct, he added a collar, tie and a French hat to his apparel. One of the most famous stories is that he used to rub liquor into his hair. He would drink his cognac or whiskey, leaving a small amount to pour into his hand, and rub it into his hair, saying a little insider, a little outsider. Bon. She makea da hair grow. On every trip he brought along a chair made of birch and rawhide where he would sit as he negotiated his business, while everyone else sat on the ground. Though it has been said he was illiterate, he had an excellent memory and kept his business records in his head without ever making a single note. He could sign his name with a flourish, so one must wonder if he actually was illiterate, or perhaps just keeping his business to himself. Let's now shift gears and explore pack trains through a critical lens, uncovering its strengths and weaknesses. Cataline's pack train usually consisted of 60 mules. Each outfit also employed 6 or more men, a foreman, also known as a corregidor, a second man, known as a secundo, a cook and several muletas. The pack mules could carry pounds and could navigate very difficult trails. Cataline's mules were so well trained that when the corregidor rang a signal bell, they would go to their own packs and wait to be loaded. In Cataline's outfit, around the turn of the century, his corregidor was Ogun and his secundo was Dave Wiggins. Even though he used over 60 mules, he knew to the item what each of them carried, where they were being delivered to, and what he had to charge. And although he ran mule trains for over half a century, it was said he never lost a pound of cargo, except in one instance when his secundo, upon smelling a 2-pound package of Limburger cheese, decided it was rotten and threw it away. Once aware of the error, Cataline made sure it was replaced and delivered. Another story about him involves a loan that he had to make after a disease had killed several of his mules. The bank manager questioned Cataline's collateral, wondering how many mules and horses he owned before consenting to lend him the money. When Cataline returned to the bank in the fall to repay the debt, he counted out the exact amount owing and paid it in full. The bank manager noted that Cataline had more money on his person and suggested that he deposit it in the bank. Cataline responded with a query as to how many horses and mules the bank owned, and upon learning it was none, decided to keep his money. In this section, we'll be shedding light on after the CPR and its impact on our understanding of the subject. With the completion of the Canadian Pacific Railway, he moved his headquarters to Ashcroft. Amelia remained in spasm, but he continued to support her and her children, always in the form of $20 gold coins. During this period, he was friends with Judge Matthew Begbie, who once held an impromptu court to provide Cataline with Canadian citizenship when his squatting rights were questioned. In 1897, Cataline led a pack train all the way from Ashcroft, then the southern terminus of the Cariboo Road, all the way to the Yukon Territory. In this section, we'll be deep diving into Quesnel and Hazelton, unraveling its complexities and uncovering valuable insights. When the construction of the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway was announced, Cataline moved his operations to Quesnel to better serve the booming central interior. He packed throughout the Cariboo, Central Interior and Skeena River District until 1912, when he retired in Hazelton. In 1920 he decided to spend his remaining winters in Victoria, but after spending just one winter in the Dominion Hotel, he returned to Hazelton for the rest of his days. He died in October 1922 at the age of 85 and is buried in the Jittenmax Cemetery. A brass plaque on his cairn simply reads Jean-Jacques Cataline, the Packer. Let's now enter the realm of Cataline in books and film and discover the fascinating stories it has to tell. The Legend of Cataline, a film by Red Letter Films. Cataline from Pioneer Days in British Columbia, Volume 1, Article 20, Sperry Klein, Art Downs, Editor. ISBN unknown. Jean-Jacques, the man they called Cataline from Frontier Days in British Columbia, the Far Land, Eva McLean, Heritage of Canada. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into places named after Cataline and its impact on our understanding. Cataline Elementary School in Williams Lake, British Columbia. Cataline Drive in Williams Lake, British Columbia, Canada. Cataline Creek in the Kisbeox region near Hazelton. Cataline Motor Inn, Fraser Lake, British Columbia, Canada. Cataline Motel and RV Park, Hazelton, British Columbia, Canada. Your feedback helped me improve, so please take a moment to leave a comment or review.